Sure. Well, good morning, 7850, and we're very happy and honored to be part of your program today. And we're talking about Rotary for All, diversity, equity through club self-awareness, DEI through education and partnerships, and DEI through community service. We're going to share our expertise, not expertise, but experience, excuse me, what we've been working on in our district. Certainly, you're in for a treat because we've got three speakers that have really great Rotarian experience, professional and community experience, and really been leaders. They're the best of the best in our district with regard to DEI, moving things forward. And we wanted to share some of our experience with you. As we feel in 7950, that, this is a journey. It is not a destination. It is continuous quality improvement, and we continue to learn more and more, and we want to engage. So we're just thrilled to be here, and hopefully our time together will be spent in an exchange, because we want to learn from you as perhaps you want to learn from us. So just a little background where 7950 is. This is our little catchment area: Rhode Island, southern Massachusetts, southeastern Massachusetts, Cape and Islands. Our governor, who has been a real champion for advancing DEI efforts, is William Billy Roberts, and Joe Small is our district DEI chair. Unfortunately, both are out of town this weekend at different conferences, so they weren't able to join us today, but we're happy to be here with you. So I just want to confirm, how much time do we have? Do we go right to the 10:30 hour, or do we have a short? Is it shorter?
I believe that we have the full time until 10:30.
Okay, very good. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rufus Jones, who will be sharing some of his experience of DEI through club awareness. Rufus?
Good morning, everyone. Well, great. The word cloud there. We began this journey, and I say journey because we're definitely not there. We're not experts, but we began this journey with the challenge that the district governor created for us to look at diversity, look at our club activity, look at our club engagement through the lens of DEI. And Yarmouth is on the Cape. People consider it a vacation destination, a retirement destination. So there are a lot of folks who have been on the Cape for a considerable amount of time, that we want to kind of dig deep and find out a little bit more about our club, and so peel back the various layers. So in everything that we do, we always go back to the four-way test. So in this case, we picked one of the precepts: is it fair to all concerned? And one of the great quotes from Dr. King is that an individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concern of all humanity. So if we look at that quote, and we look at the premise of what diversity, equity, and inclusion is, it's going beyond your comfort level. It's looking at it through a lens of others, not just what your lifestyle and your beliefs are, but engaging everyone. Next slide. So the diversity wheel basically characterizes what we call innate and lived experience. And inside of the wheel are those innate. In other words, you're born with this. Gender, whether you have any physical disabilities or abilities, your age, your sexual orientation, identity, ethnicity, race, that is a given. But on the outside wheel, okay, are all the lived experiences, whether it's your education, your marital status, whether you were in the military, where you've lived over time, your lifetime, your work background, all of that is part of your makeup. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was not only find out a profile of our club by looking at innate characteristics, but also lived experiences so that we can see who we are as a club. And if are we as homogeneous as it may appear? Because, you know, there are folks that say, well, we don't have diversity because we're predominantly a white organization, or we're a white male organization. Well, when you peel back the layers, there's a lot of makeup to each of us that finds a lot of similarities and a lot of different experiences that we've had. And we want to be able to celebrate those. Next slide, please. So the challenge that the district governor gave us was we want to do things, we want to educate the club, we want to understand the needs of the club. We hope that it will also expand club membership. We want to see if we can make membership more affordable, because a lot of perceptions is that Rotary is a rich person's club because of our philanthropy. And also we want to make meetings more accessible. Our club meeting is at 7 o'clock on Friday mornings. There are some people who we want to attract that's not a good hour because they're still working, they got to get kids off to school and so forth. And so, you know, we've actually had some informational meetings to try to get some of our young professionals to consider Rotary. So we registered ourselves for the DEI challenge. We initiated an actionable plan for each benchmark. And one of the things that we wanted to do was create a volunteer list. I volunteered to lead, but I did not want to be the face of DEI because, first of all, I'm the only Black Rotarian that's active in the club. So I didn't want this to be a Black-white thing. I wanted to make sure that we had some representation of club leadership and club membership on the committee. And we now have a committee of 8 individuals. One is a past president. We have 2 individuals who are, and this is just by happenstance, by the people who volunteered. We have 2 individuals, a male and a female, that are in their 40s. We have a lesbian. We have a couple of Jewish members. So, and you have myself. So we have a lot of diversity, if you will, in terms of how we want to look within the club, in terms of peeling back the layers and getting an idea of what the club profile is all about. So I was very fortunate that those folks who stepped up and wanted to be a part of the club membership, that they represented what we actually are aiming for. So we created the committee, and we developed a DEI survey for the club. We use SurveyMonkey. We developed a series of questions that related to some of the questions were basically, you know, gender. How do you define yourself? And we included non-binary, transgender in the gender category, age groups, race, sexual orientation, level of education, what career, work background do you have? Do you have any military experience? So these are all that outer layer of that diversity wheel. Marital status, how long you've lived on Cape Cod, socioeconomic status, and also would you be interested in celebrating a multicultural day or multicultural events? And also one thing that we also wanted to know was, how often do you regularly interact with folks outside of your race during the course of during the course of the week or the month? And we had another little test we use is that we asked the folks do they know what percentage of students of color that attend the regional high school in the towns that we serve, which is Yarmouth and Dennis. And reason for that is because Yarmouth and Dennis has a high percentage of service trade workers who have families. And so the high schools and the schools may not represent who we think we see as we travel around Cape Cod in our two communities. And most of the folks did not have an idea that 30% of the students that attend the Dennis Yarmouth High School were students of color. So we assigned committee members to lead an initiative from the that's the next step, is that we had the survey done. We communicated the results of the survey, and we stair-stepped it. We met with, as a committee, we documented what we found. We went to we met with the board, club board, and we shared that with them. And then we shared the results with membership, and then we made a presentation. That led to including a presentation by a DEI expert that basically worked with us to give us some tips and some best practices to engage others within the club to broaden our reach in terms of membership and also engaging the community. Okay. So one of the things that we want to do now is as you see in this progression discussion, is that we want to now move beyond our own individual profile and learning about who we are, and then take these steps to get more people involved with our activities through our what we call DEI moments. Okay, and DEI moments is basically a safe place where folks can share their enlightenment. I mean, we've had some tear-jerking testimonials about when folks became aware of when they stepped beyond their own comfort zone, or when they announced to others that they had a persuasion that was different from what people would accept. So the thing is that we want people to be comfortable in that space of sharing these moments, but also we want to now grow beyond our club and engage speakers and engage the community on DEI. And I'll probably take questions after we continue our progression of the discussion. So,
sounds good. Unless anybody has any questions at this point, we could take one or two, but if not, we can move along. Thank you, Rufus. Appreciate that. Our next presenter is Wing Kai. He hails from the Bridgewaters in Massachusetts. Wing?
Can everyone hear me? Thank you very much, Kyle.
Yes.
Yeah, Kyle was quite generous when he told all of you that we had lots of knowledge or expertise, or tried to or did a lot from our clubs. But as Rufus said, we are all in the journey together. So I'll just spend the next 10 minutes or so to explain what the Rotary Club of the Bridgewaters has been doing, and try to share our experiences. As Kyle said, our approach is to advance DEI through education and partnerships. So I think, as you can see from this slide, Bridgewater is located in the heart of southeastern Massachusetts. As you know, our district comprises southeastern Massachusetts, Cape Cod, and Rhode Island. So 3 representatives today represent each of the 3 main areas. And southeastern Massachusetts, on the other hand, is, if you draw a triangle between Boston, Providence, and Cape Cod, we're right in the middle. So our club is called the Bridgewaters because it comprises the town of Bridgewater, the town of East Bridgewater, and the town of West Bridgewater. DEI committee, or the idea, was formed around 2019. In 2017 or 2018, there was a change of membership when we had more diverse club members. We had, the first Latino and African American, not the first, but new Latino and African American members who joined the club, and I myself, being an Asian American, also joined the club. And also, there were other club members who were very active in international service, who have done a lot of social justice work as well. So the club has always been supportive, but they were a little bit passive in doing some of the things that relating to being more inclusive. So there was this idea of forming this committee back in 2019, and then it became much more active during the pandemic when we were meeting on Zoom every week. So we had an opportunity to share ideas. So the goal of the committee is to provide educational programs in our regular club meetings. Just like other clubs, we meet once a week. We never stopped during the pandemic. We were meeting on Zoom almost every week and continue our work together. So we really use this approach of collaborations. So this is an early photo of Zoom when we were just locked down during the early months of the pandemic. You can see that there's a very small club. One of the good or bad things if you see from a small club is that when we have 20 people in a meeting instead of 80 people, then you can see everyone on the screen, the first screen. So you can actually more inclusive, and everyone turns their camera on and very engaged. So it doesn't really change too much about what we did from before the pandemic when we were meeting in person. There was always like people sitting in different tables, and there was a podium and people come up to speak. And I didn't see too much difference between the formats. So the key of what we do is that we also had a survey like the Yarmouth Club, but our survey was much, not as detailed as Rufus said in their clubs. So we did a little bit of work, and we found out that half of the club had very little connection with DEI issues or people of different background, but the other half of the club were very much engaged with that. So we decided to about in 2021, beginning from 2021, to have regular DEI speakers, and usually on the third week of the month. We have a fixed schedule. I think if you have a structure or institutionalize certain practices that help you to really build that into a part of the culture. So we say we're inclusive and welcoming. So we think about what are the inclusive issues and topics that we need to address in the society or in the world. So we bring in speakers and talk about that. So we don't look at DEI as just one expert or kind of particular diversity training expert. We look at this as a range of people who could offer their experiences to all of us. So it sounds like it's not, and also diversity topics is everyone can contribute to it. As Rufus said, there's the diversity wheel, and it's based on your personal experiences. It's also important to not do it alone, because the Rotary Club is not the only local organizations that could, develop advanced changes. So it's important to have joint programs or joint activities and welcome the other community partners to support what we do. So we have these collaborations with community partners for local change. The last goal is to focus on what we call the peace initiatives through global engagement. And some people, we would draw a very clear distinction between domestic diversity and global diversity, but actually they're the two sides of the same coin. So you have global diversity in the local community, and your local community is also affected, by immigrants who came from all over the world, or also from global causes that Rotary International has been asking us to do. So I think it's really arbitrary to cut, too much of a distinction between the two. So other than this goals, so I'll give you some ideas about some of the topics we have covered in our regular club meetings. We have people from, the Rotarians Against Racism movement to come here to speak to us. We had local organizations that were committed to social justice. We had organizations in Bridgewater called the Bridgewater Communities for Civil Rights. that is an organization that did the stand out against, discrimination and racism. We had speakers who came here to talk about gender equality, and especially, both at home and abroad, including the organizations about, the treatment of girls in Afghanistan, which is an equity and diversity and inclusion issue. We put front and center the role of immigrants and refugees into our work, and we have been working, inviting refugee resettlement agencies, when Afghanistan became an issue in the summer, and more recently with Ukraine. We've done a lot of, groups that came in and talk about immigrant services. Especially in Southeastern Massachusetts, we have a local Cape Verdean community that came here in the 19th century from Africa. Also, we have, in Massachusetts, there's a Latinx communities. So we have different speakers about that. We also have speakers about our people, the Wampanoag tribes in Southeastern Massachusetts, Near Plymouth and Cape Cod. We close to a university where I work, so we tend to have a lot of international visitors, and these international visitors can give us a lot of diversity perspectives, not from very high-income countries. A lot of them are actually from impoverished countries. So we actually bring in a lot of diversity from more uncommon countries. So they're not all from England, Canada, or Italy, but they're from some Eastern European countries. They actually could bring in some diversity and help us understand the Ukraine situation. And also some countries like India and one of the most interesting group is we host the African Fellows in the university every summer. So 25 African professionals come to Southeastern Massachusetts, and they had interacted with the club. So the humanitarian aid groups, we work with them a lot. And also we also invited the local and global peace initiatives. We're doing that. So this is a picture of the African Fellows. In 2018, they were, when we were in person back then, we met over breakfast, and we could not accommodate all 25 of them, but quite a few of them attended. We always really allocate part of our funding to shelter box. We were, awarded the Silver Hero Award, recognized for our dedication to shelter box and global causes. We do work in the local communities, and we work with a local organization in Southeastern Massachusetts and the Cape Verdean community. And there's an alliance of different churches and community organizations. So we went into the parking lot and deliver our masks to them at that time, because they, at that time, that's back in 2020. So in terms of collaborations with local organizations, I'll just give you a few examples. So Bridgewater is the home of Bridgewater State University, a local regional university, and where I work. And also our club president is here, Mike Krisanik. He used to also was a professor there. We work with the Bridgewater, and especially in our City of Peace initiative, we want Bridgewater to apply to become a city of peace, because we have a tradition of Bridgewater that really focus on peace building, and the Rotary Peace Fellowships program was advertised to us, and we have people coming from that fellowship program to speak to us. So we partner with these organizations to form the City of Peace Committee, with the Institutes for Global Engagement, Institute of Social Justice, the Bridgewater Interfaith Alliance, Communities for Civil Rights, Diversity and Inclusion for Community Engagement, together with the Rotary Club. We also apply for global grants and vocational projects. We're going to have a group of vocational educators from South Africa who will come here to discuss issues about equity and diversity for education. And finally, we have done a presentation for our district 7950 on our peace initiative. which is a larger part of inclusion. Actually, the history of Peace Pole is that we had a Peace Pole a long time ago, and right outside our first parish of the Universalist Church, right on campus in Bridgewater. At the end of September each year, we have the Peace Week. We started Peace Week, and also we have the Peace Vigil. And that's one of the pictures about the Peace Pole. What Bridgewater is doing is that to have the message of peace across the city and the town. So we are applying to have the town library to have another peace pole, and ask East Bridgewater and West Bridgewater to have other peace poles as well. And this is going to be the last slide. And this is when we presented in the district, a month ago about the peace initiatives. And when there's so many things going on, in Afghanistan, Ukraine, and other things happening abroad, the Peace Committee has been very, very active recently. So thank you, Carl. I thought that the photos would give you a clear idea of some of the things we did.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your presentation. Any questions at this point for Win Kai, or we'll hold off until the end? Fine. Nancy is our next speaker, and she is our Rhode Island representative, and comes with a wealth of experience in a variety of different venues. And she is going to be sharing community service, DEI through community service. Nancy?
Thank you, Carl. Our club serves the area of Southern Rhode Island, the towns of South Kingstown and Narragansett. This has traditionally been a rural area with farming and fishing as the main industries, plus some tourism. We have a lot of the Rhode Island state beaches in our towns and the University of Rhode Island. So that's been the traditional basis for this area. But over the past 30 years, there have been more year-round residents as opposed to summer residents, retirees, and also people moving here to commute to other parts of the state. So it's on more of a suburban characteristic. Our DEI impetus is that we had a new member move to this community. She has 2 biracial grandchildren, and we saw her, she saw the area through a different lens, which is how welcoming was this community to her family. So it started us thinking more about how we can do outreach. And I want to explain 3 of the initiatives that we're taking this year. So the main one, a huge one, is an expo that we're having in September. We're calling it All-Inclusive South County, and the theme is inclusion. So we're taking a broad view of diversity here: race and ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, income, physical status, intellectual disability, religion, age, etc. This is an expo for businesses, nonprofit organizations, schools, churches, youth groups, arts groups. We want everybody to feel that they can be part of this. We're asking them to take a table and explain, show in the expo sense what they do. So we're hoping that they'll be able to gain clients, gain employees, and generally make themselves known to the community. Our keynote performer, you see here, is a hip hop as well as jazz, classical, and pop violinist named Big Lux. We found him on TV. He was on one of the national morning shows playing to the whales at the Mystic Aquarium. So he has a lot of talents. And if you want to see his videos, he's amazing. Big Lux, L-U-X. So we're happy. He's a Westerly native, lives just a few miles from him. And so we're having Big Lux and also many other performers. We're having games and so on, as well as the expo. So I think it's going to be very interesting. So the next slide is our Children's Festival, which is coming right up in May. It's open to all. We're hoping to do outreach for the club. This is a fundraiser, and we are also using it for outreach for membership and for awareness of Rotary. We invited the Narragansett tribe. They're going to do storytelling. Our area has a remnant of the Narragansetts, those who were not killed in the Great Swamp Massacre back 150, 200 years ago. And the people that you see on the right are connected to the tribe, and they are entrepreneurs who have established a community garden where they marry the traditional ways of farming with more contemporary scientific farming. So it's very interesting. And some of them also do dance, storytelling, and so on. So we're hoping that we will bring a big cross-section of the community to this fair and also have a diversity theme. And then the last initiative that we're taking is a partnership with the YMCA. We're doing reading to children. The book that we've chosen is part of the Read Across Rhode Island effort. And there are two books that they chose for Read Across Rhode Island. One is more advanced, and it's for young adults, but we chose the picture book, We Are Water Protectors. It has a theme of the environment and also of Native understanding of protection of the environment. So it's about a group of Native children who band together to stop environmental degradation in their area. We're going to read the book to them. We're going to swim, and then we're going to serve pizza, and then everybody gets a book to take home. And this partnership with the Y has helped, again, for outreach for the club, helped us to broaden our base of people who know about the Y. And you can see on the right here, this woman is the aquatic director of the Y, and she came and spoke to one of our meetings. So we're hoping that we can recruit Y staff as well as maybe some other community members through this effort. So the last slide is my contact information. And if you have any questions or comments or want to know more about any of our efforts, please feel free to contact me. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate that. Now we've kind of put a lot of information out there in terms of some of the things that we're doing. Didn't know if you had any questions about that, but if not, I guess it's time for us to ask you questions. What is 7850 doing about DEI? How are folks responding? I encourage everybody to kind of take their mutes off and just kind of jump in with a conversation. Anybody want to be the brave one to start us off? All right.
I'll live dangerously.
Oh, excellent.
So in all candor, I'm not seeing a whole lot being done because I think what you've identified, and Rufus, actually, you're the one who identified it fairly early, which is that DEI for a lot of people is very monochromatic, that is to say black or white. And so the discussion point in our neck of the woods immediately becomes, well, we're not that racially diverse a community. And truth be told, that's somewhat correct. But again, as you've all pointed out, and I love the slide that you had out there, in particular at the very beginning, DEI is much more than just a black, white, or racial or ethnic identifier. It's a broader perspective that we need to be embracing and identifying within our clubs and within our district.
Richard, thank you so much for taking the first step and speaking up, because I think that's one of the key elements of getting into this, because I think it could feel a little awkward. It's not an easy, comfortable. If we called this workshop membership development, it would have probably had a little bit more of a easy feel to it. But those of you who signed up for this are the champions. And although, as we said before, this is a journey. We do not have all the answers. We are learning. We are making errors.
Engage you. So please, again, try to respect the use of the time that I've spent in preparing and the time that your AG has spent in their role, and make sure that you are able to go ahead.
Carolyn,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but there's a chance everybody in the breakout rooms is back.
I see that. Hello, everyone.
I'm so sorry. That was I'll reopen the rooms and reassign or people can go back into them. I'm really sorry.
Okay. No, that's fine, Louisa. We're all in this together.
Yay.
Hey,
How do
So,
we do that?
can you put that original breakout, what you did earlier?
There it is.
Thank you.
Sorry.
goodbye, all. Enjoy your continuing discussion as they disappear into the night or into the day.
I'm really
Nice talking
sorry.
to you.
No, Louisa. Hey, I'm impressed. I don't know too many people who could pull that off on a whim. So that's pretty amazing. And there they go. Look at them. Fantastic.
Let me just say to everyone, if you create breakout rooms,
It was recorded, Carl, so we're fine.
Oh,
We'll just
okay.
watch the
Oh,
video
yeah.
later.
Right. Great. Good. Terrific. Can refer back to that. But
But hey, Carl, I'd just like to share that when we had our DEI expert, and this was a breakfast meeting, and it was powerful, but it was disturbing for a lot of folks. We made a lot of folks uncomfortable in that meeting. And when you really get into the discussion of DEI, and there were a lot of visuals. Some people thought it was too much politics involved, but all the speaker was doing was just basically presenting a lot of post-George Floyd incidents and so forth. But he was also talking about allyship, and how can we kind of join in the concerns of others and be an ally. And but it was not comfortable for a lot of folks. And so we're still going through that transition. And I'm actually learning, and some of the things that I've heard from my co-panelists in terms of our next step, things that we're looking to do in continuing our efforts to get folks comfortable. Because as Carl said, if we had titled this membership development, everybody would have felt good about it. But when you say DEI, and say, whoa, that's too political, that's too radical. What are you guys talking about?
absolutely. What a question for you, Rufus, is what are some of the things that your group is doing since that uncomfortable meeting to kind of continue the conversation?
Well, we be honest, we took a little sabbatical because we've had some more DEI moments, and these are what I didn't have much time early on. These are 3 to 5 minute moments of reflection of in an individual's life where they said things were different than how I grew up. One member talked about his college roommate. They moved a room for 4 years together, and at the end of their residency, he found out that he's gay, or I won't say he became gay, but he recognized himself as being gay. But they still have a lifelong friendship, because just because they have a different persuasion doesn't necessarily change their friendship in terms of their relationship. So I think what we want to do is get to the level. And one of the things I want folks we do a lot of good stuff in our club. We do a lot of scholarship, and I know we do a lot of scholarship that are, in terms of our population of students, are diverse. We're not capturing that information. One of the things we want to do is do more branding and more communication. And so I'm kind of looking at the next Rotary year, because I've been engaging with the president-elect a little bit more. We're going to look at our mission, and I'm going to embrace this Rotary for all. We have a weekly newsletter. We're going to have a DEI corner, if you will, on our weekly newsletter. But also I'm going to challenge each of the committees that we have, and I want them to look through the lens of DEI in terms of what they're doing. We do Meals on Wheels. Okay, we provide over 800 books to students during vacation week. And as Wing was talking about what they're doing there locally in their community, I'm saying, well, we're doing that, but we're not branding it, we're not marketing it. And we had a book that, because I was at the labeling session where we were putting all the labels in to give to the school, and it was a book that could embrace diversity. So we're doing things, but we're not thinking about what we're doing in terms of our initiatives. So I don't want folks to think they got to do something different. I just want to acknowledge what you're doing and then embrace it. So that's the next level.
That's great. That's terrific. Anybody else thoughts on that?
I have a suggestion. One thing that I heard from Billy Roberts, our district governor, who was our DEI chair before he became district governor-elect, is that instead of just thinking about doing things for groups, think about doing things with groups, partnering. So if you go out, we went out to, for example, a church that serves the community largely of people who live in public housing in this area. And they're low-income people. And we had opportunities to not just help them, but to figure out what they wanted to do and do it with them. So we're going to be helping to revamp a playground in the public housing complex. We're not doing it, they're doing it, and we're helping. And that's a way of honoring their individualism, their initiative, and also of broadening our reach. And the same thing with reaching out to the Native Americans. It's not for just philanthropy, but it's also for partnership. And we're picking up Native American members through that partnership. So it's collaboration, I think, is a different mode of reaching out to people than just, hey, do you want to join Rotary?
Excellent point, Nancy. District Governor Carrier, what has been your experience in your service? Are you, I don't know if you can respond, but love to hear your perspective.
It seems like his sound isn't working. He's not muted.
Can't hear you.
Yeah.
Maybe without the headset.
Oh, well.
Turn this off. Is that better?
Yeah.
Can hear you.
I think I went too long to be quiet and the whole thing shut down. So because Billy was a fellow DG with me, we tracked through this experience together. When we did our first symposium training event sort of during the pandemic time, Billy came and did a presentation for us as a district to get us into this conversation, DEI conversation. And I think we've been trying to look for, at least I've been trying to look for ways, and that's why I'm so glad you all are here as a part of this, of keeping this conversation going, and to have the four of you in particular to share experiences about how you are doing it, how it is working, to give us ideas as a district and our clubs about how we might continue and to develop this because it is a scary topic, as you guys have all indicated for people. And so hearing from each of you, I think helps us to begin to build our confidence and to know we've got people we can go to help us think through this also is great. The other thing I've been wanting us to begin to think about as a district, and I know there's interest, is how do we develop a DEI committee at our district level. We want to encourage clubs to explore this, obviously, but we have not gone in that direction yet. And I'm sure we could at another time get some real counsel from your district about how you began that process and so on and so forth. So
it's really helpful when you have a charismatic leader that is all about DEI and wants to kind of bring that in. That's how I got involved, because I was at Pets a few years back, and he came to me and just started talking about this. And I'm in a interracial marriage, and so I kind of understand some of the challenges with this, because our Dartmouth club is pretty when they say male, pale, and scale. So we're trying to, kind of upgrade that. And so I persuaded my wife to join us, and have been able to add some more, diversity to our group and have these conversations. And we try to do that a little bit in everything that we did, talking about folks that who are we leaving out and why. We just did a comedy club, and we had it was kind of a last minute kind of situation, but it was not really accessible for folks in wheelchairs. We were talking about, okay, that's really not something that we want. We need to think more deeply about these kinds of things, because one of our members is in a wheelchair. We had an accommodation for him, but it wasn't really yes, we would have, been able to help him, but, we need to really think about these kinds of things so that people are more welcomed and, things are accessible for folks. So, we don't get it all right at the same time. And sometimes I think, speaking as a white male, and having a lot of friends who, might not be as enlightened about diversity, I think there's a feel that there's a loss of power, quite frankly. And I think, because that white privilege, and this is an uncomfortable topic, but it feels like it's dissipating a bit. And so, why is this white guy, facilitating the DEI? Well, we all need to be allies. We need to be, identifying our differences and embracing them, learning about them, and it'll make us all stronger as a result. But it's persistence, and it is about, still continuing to, to push forward, understanding when things make you feel uncomfortable. Well, why is that? And, digging into that a little bit. But trying to do it with respect, with the principles of Rotary. And that's, some of the things that we're looking at. There's no easy answers, and there is no one answer. But, I think what Rufus was talking about, hey, look at what you're doing and make it better. We look at it with a diversity, equity, inclusion light. You don't have to, do huge things, although those are great too. But, start with the smaller steps.
Carl, I
Yes,
think
sir.
you've hit the nail right on the head, because the issue is, in fact, sharing the space and sharing the stage and sharing the power. And if people embrace Rotary's values truly, then that's the direction that DEI is going in. And the people who are afraid, most things, when we get psychologically afraid, we're afraid you're going to step off a cliff. And in fact, it's just the fog. You can't see it. You'll be on the same level when you take that step. You won't fall. But what's revealing is that there are many people who haven't truly accepted Rotary's values about diversity and inclusion. And they say the words, but they're in their head, they're still thinking about male, pale, and stale. That means, oh, a guy who lives around the corner, he's diverse from my street. But it's it's not true diversity of experience, true diversity of lived experience, true diversity of making room at the table for other people and facilitating their getting to the table. So I think you're right. It is uncomfortable, but it is the direction that we need to go in to truly be Rotary.
And it's a matter of understanding. We've got slides in our presentation that talks about the difference between equality and equity. And that's, you know, we could break it down for some folks that might not necessarily be thinking about this kind of thing that much. And you kind of have to do it a few times to kind of break down the resistance. You know, understanding that there is unconscious bias, and that is just nature, because we know what we know, and we see things from our own perspectives, which might be very much different than somebody else's. And, you know, somebody else doesn't have to be bad for us to be good. We can both be good. How do we lift, you know, the rising tide? So, I mean, I think those are some of the conversations that, you know, spending some time. I think when Kai, you know, is really embedded the conversation every third week of the month, they're meeting, they have, you know, specific topics on these kinds of things. I think what Nancy was talking in terms of, you know, reaching out to other groups and how can we help you? And that's a great way to kind of build partnerships, as well as create new memberships.
And as Nancy and Wayne were giving that presentation, I was thinking about some of the things that we have done in our club. I mean, we have the Wampanoag tribe and on the Cape. And and we had a member discuss their plight and their issues, but no representation from the tribe to do the same to our club. I said, well, but why is it we just can't invite them and share their story? Why do we have to tell their story?
Right.
Okay, so it's just so many. I mean, I'm just in this conversation, I'm learning and processing a lot of stuff now, because I'm only in Rotary for a year and a half. Okay, so so it's enlightening for me as well.
I think we all said that outreach is so important, and you know, whether it's in the form of formal partnerships or just, you know, anyone in the membership knows anyone, and just to do an introduction and just to ask. There's nothing hurt to ask if you have the good intentions. And it's not really, it's just the first step. It doesn't have to be too many. Just if you do it once or twice, and then people think that that's the issue that the club is really committed and passionate about. Because we all try to help people in need, but we ask the root causes of inequality, inequity. And some of them are based on their identities. Some of them were based on socioeconomic reasons. And I think what the district has done is that other than all the things we've talked about, there's also accountability kind of built into the whole district. So now we have a DEI tracker and ask clubs to really use that as a reference to think about what they can improve or do a little bit more. One of the things we haven't talked about is that, you know, we assume everyone can do the same and pay the same membership.
Yes.
Have the same socioeconomic status and, you know, participate in the same way. We don't really try to reach out to people who are not as, you know, wealthy or, you know, middle class to join the club. So I think we need to have different types of membership. We need to have the different types of materials to be, you know, disseminated. So the tracker helped me to think about the next step. But also I think about it's also important to look at, you know, specific issues that the club cares about. If it's poverty, if it's, you know, housing, if it's public health. And these things can be a way to get into DEI issues, you know, that affect particular communities. So you don't start by saying that a particular group of people gets discriminated, but you get the fact that you care about this issue. And it's really, you know, caused by inequities on particular populations.
Well put.
Could I ask, for those of you that have universities close by. I think one of you mentioned that, which we do kind of in my neck of the woods, and I know others of us do. Have you found those to be good partners as you've tried to open up and explore this issue in your club and in your district?
I think it's interesting for us because, you know, our university has always been involved in the club memberships. So because we're so close to each other, so over the years, 20 years, 30 years, club members have been included in university members. What's been changed over the last 5 years is that the university members became the more, you know, the presidents, district, you know, and all that leadership positions. So the partnerships becomes a little bit more natural. I think they're good partnerships. I always impressed by Middlebury's, you know, being this. Are you Middlebury with Vermont? Did I hear about some people at Vermont? Mm-hmm. And you are you're the language capital, world language capital in the United States.
Wow.
You have so much diversity in your language programs. I do feel like this is a really an important part of diversity to explore as well.
There are some great opportunities. I was trying to put it in the chat, but I can't seem to navigate Zoom well enough. But I did email Margaret the PowerPoint slides if you're interested. There are also some other Rotary International as well as non-Rotary resource links that are there. All our contact information is there. I think once you've established your DEI district committee or, you know, working group or whatever you end up doing, we'd be happy to kind of share our other materials and learn from each other. Because I mean, again, we're experts in our experience because it's our own experience, but we're not certainly experts in everything, or, you know, and so we're just learning as well as you are. So I applaud your willingness to kind of step out and do this, and this is really important, and it is the future, and it will make us all stronger as a result.
Thanks.
And though we only have a couple minutes left, I don't know if anybody has anything else, or if we want to wrap up, or either way.
Well, quickly on that note, Caroline has taken the initiative to put out a survey, which I hope at least those of us who are in 7850 have seen it. It did a blast to everybody, asking where people might want to participate in the district structure next year. And one of those areas was DEI. So if any of you who are in 7850 know of someone, or you yourself are interested, please respond to that survey. I think she's going to send it out again. But when it comes your way or you see it, please make sure, if you have an interest, that you check that so we can begin to put this group together, however we want to call it, whatever we want to call ourselves. We start the journey as a district as well. So thanks.
All right. Well, thank you for having us, and have a great day.
Great.
Thank you for coming. It's given us so much to think about.
Wonderful. Thank you for being part.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.